The smoking wreck of the human ship crackled into view on the vid screen. It was almost a derelict, held together with nothing but spare parts and hope. A thick cloud of black smoke surrounded it, and sparks could be seen shooting out of breaches in its hull. Captain Markth studied the wreck intently. After battling these humans for tens of solar cycles, he knew better than to underestimate them. With humans, when it appeared they were at their weakest, that was when they turned out to be when they were the most deadly. This lesson was hard-learned, but Captain Markth learned it well. 4 other Alliance ships besides his were surrounding the doomed human vessel. This was it. This was the end of the war. This, in fact, was the end of the human race. "Contact the human," Captain Markth ordered. In a few seconds, the vid screen flickered and changed, showing the inside of the human vessel. And there, perched on the edge of the command chair, cradling an arm that was clearly broken in multiple places, was the very last human alive. "Are you offering your surrender?" The human smirked, but his voice trailed off into a low gurgle. The human was wounded, perhaps mortally so. Damn, but these humans were tough. Every time Captain Mark thought he could not be surprised by them, he was always proven wrong. Even now, surrounded by 5 ships of war, his own ship a smoldering wreck, and on death's doorstep, the human bravely faced his enemies. He had developed a great respect for this race he had fought against. Brave, loyal, fearless. They had earned his respect that only opponents in war could have. Just because you were trying to kill them did not mean you could not respect them, and Captain Markth respected his enemy. "Human," Captain Markth began. "John," the human replied. Captain Markth nodded his head slightly. "John," Captain Markth began again, "you are hereby ordered to surrender yourself and your ship to the Alliance. Any further resistance at this point is not only futile, it is unnecessary." John just sat silent, his breath coming in short, halting gasps. "You are defeated. Your race has been destroyed. Do not throw your life away out of pride. I hereby am authorized to grant you assurance you may live the rest of your life out on any planet of the Alliance, a life free of debt, work, worry, or strife." "Yeah," John growled, "but we took a lot of you with us, didn't we? Your Alliance was 19 worlds. Now it is what, 16? What happened with the other 3? "John," he answered the human softly, "you are about to die. I do not want to be the one responsible for killing the last human in the universe." John seemed to flinch. He made a coughing sound and groaned in pain, and spat blood on the deck plates at his feet. "Captain," John glared at the vid screen, "you will never have that honor." Captain Markth backed up to his command chair and sat quietly. "Sir," his second-in-command said earnestly, "you did it. You ended the war and the human threat. You are a hero." "Maybe," the captain replied, "but I don't feel very much like a hero at all." Dirth sat straight, listening intently. He was awed by what he heard and saw. The instructor had just shown the entire graduating class the famous Last Human video. Though he and everyone else had seen it countless times before, Dirth was always awed by the spectacle. The fact it happened 300 cycles ago, and that everyone in the video was long dead, meant nothing. The event itself was the important thing here. And Dirth knew who the real heroes in this situation were. It was not Captain Markth. It was not the military. It was not the strategists. It was not even the council itself. It was the threat assessors. And secure in his knowledge, Dirth knew what choice he was going to make today. He knew what his future held. "As you graduate into full members of the Alliance today," the instructor said loudly for all to hear, "you now get to choose your path forward, to decide the best future you can pick to serve the Alliance. In short, today you will choose what you will do for the rest of your working ages." The graduates started talking excitedly, going off in small groups and clumps to prepared workstations that had been set up. Some students flocked to the military stations, others to medicine or logistics, but Dirth only had eyes for one career path, the path of a threat assessor. A shiver went down his spine at the thought. Imagine being in control of the response to any threat, real or potential, that the Alliance faced. The military at his beck and call, the Council itself seeking his advice. The lives of billions of souls depending on his assessment of any situation. This was the life he desired. This was the life he wanted. "I am signing up to become a threat assessor," Dirth said both loudly and with great determination. The attendant looked around and said just as loudly, "Fine, fine. Let me explain what further instruction and schooling you will need to accomplish this." But then he said in a low whisper, "You do not want to do this. I regret the day I thought the same. I am trying to help you here." Dirth wasn't going to fall for this ploy, an obvious attempt to ensure only those that were truly serious were allowed to apply. "I'm serious," the attendant implored. "Sign up for refuse collection or working with the food processors. Anything but this." "I am signing up to become a threat assessor," Dirth loudly said again. The attendant sighed and printed out a small blue work chit. "I warned you," he said softly, and then pointed Dirth to some doors on the north wall. "Go give them this chit, and they will take you from there." He sat, slumped over, staring dully at a vid screen along with 4 other threat assessors. He glanced at one of them, almost sleeping at his terminal, a trickle of drool spilling from his mouth. Oh, how the choosing videos lied. "Great adventure," it claimed. Dirth snorted out loud at the thought, waking the drooler who quickly pretended to be working, looked around, and then started nodding off again. He remembers the first one, his computer beeping and displaying the message. Threat potential, 0.26%. His first major threat to the Alliance was a floating piece of space rock getting too close to a nearby orbiting station. He routed a battle barge to vaporize the rock and went back to being bored out of his skull. Threat new. Author Junid Strain Contagion. Some guy on an Alliance planet sneezed, and it came up as a threat. Well, to be fair, it was a new strain of the Junid respiratory infection, which might have maybe evolved into a threat. But of course, it never came to fruition. The third threat was just as laughable. Threat potential, 0.56%. Author, factory workers on Nebula 7. Great. Some workers were upset at their working conditions and started to grumble. Correction officers were sent, and the troublemakers taken care of. There, encased in crystal, were 3 trophies. Trophies from the greatest threats the Alliance had ever seen. The greatest threats that were defeated by the threat assessors. The trophies, Dirth was sure, he would never see the like of again. The first trophy, encased in blue crystal, held a vial of the most lethal pathogen to ever afflict the Alliance. Nearly 1/5 of the total Alliance population died from what was encased in this vial. It was the threat assessors that took it upon themselves to order the area-wide destruction of all life if the pathogen was found. Harsh measures, to be sure, but it saved the lives of countless other Alliance members. Now, there was a cure, and the threat was no more. But it had been eradicated due to the actions of the assessors. The second trophy, encased in a yellow crystal, was a small scrap of a banner. On the farming planet of Zilios, the rebellion started. Claiming injustice, the entire planet rebelled against the Alliance, and in so doing, cut off food for 80% of the other Alliance members. Mass starvation began, and it took the military might, backed by the threat assessor's advice, to regain control and spread out food production across dozens of other planets, ensuring this would never happen again. The small scrap of banner was all that was left of the flag that Zilios flew in rebellion. In truth, it was all that was left of the entire planet. The third trophy, encased in red crystal, was piece of metal, taken from the last ship of the humans. It was scorched, charred, and battered. Dirth always remembered the vid capture where the last human destroyed his own ship over 300 cycles ago, and this was a piece of that vessel. Oh, to be an assessor during those times, to assess threats like the humans were. Dirth wished in vain for excitement like that to befall him. Dirth would soon come to learn to be careful what he wished for. It started with a small chirp from his computer. The algorithms had detected a possible threat and displayed it for the assessor to determine if it was valid or not. Author unknown. Dearth excitedly sat up. Any time a threat, no matter how trivial it was, appeared, it at least broke the monotony of his boring life. It was when Dearth saw the percentage that he really started to pay attention. Never in his 4 years had he seen a threat that was even close to 1%, but this one was over it. Dearth was shocked that the last part read, unknown. If it was unknown, how could you know it was a threat? How was he supposed to assess this with no real information? Glad he finally had something to do, he started working. The other 4 assessors were drawn by curiosity and boredom to see what he was working on. They started throwing out advice and talking over each other, trying to help. Dearth sat working, silently fuming at all the interruptions. He had now been at this for almost his entire allotted work time when it happened. A new beep and a new display. Author unknown. This was no longer a potential threat. This was a true threat. Dearth immediately sent an alarm notice to the council, and all the assessors ran to their consoles and began to work in a panic. Something was out there. Somewhere. And it was acting hostile towards Alliance interests. For 3 solar rotations, Dearth and the assessors worked, the council itself breathing down their necks. The threat had not changed, staying at 12.45%, but still it was unknown. Dearth was confused. How could it be unknown? If it was recognized as a threat, the algorithms had to know what was causing it. In fact, if it was unknown, wouldn't the threat read as new and not hostilities? Dearth sat bolt upright, a chill running down his back. Fingers flying on the computing console, Dearth went to work. The Alliance algorithm used so much data, it bogged down the processors, so the Alliance removed data no longer considered pertinent. In the early days, a single unregistered ship passing close to an Alliance planet was considered a threat, but now there were so many defenses and procedures in place that data from the algorithm was removed. Dearth unlocked all the removed data and restarted the algorithm. Due to the size of the workload, Dearth knew he had a long time to wait. After many hours, he once again glanced at the trophy case. He pulled out his personal datapad and pulled up the last human vid capture again. Perhaps reliving the greatest threat assessor victory would bring inspiration. He had just gotten to the part when Captain Marth had said he did not want to kill the last human, when another assessor across the room laughed a bit at something someone told him. Dearth sat up straighter. The laugh he heard coincided perfectly with the human flinching and then coughing. Everyone always thought that the human was shocked by the realization he was the last human, but Dearth was beginning to doubt that. It looked like the human started to laugh when he heard those words, but being wounded, he ended up coughing with pain. Dearth replayed it. Again. And again. Every time, it was more apparent the human started to laugh when Captain Marth said he was the last human in the universe. He laughed. And when the human replied, "You will never have that honor," it did not mean that the human would take his own life. It meant that there were other humans out there, in the vastness of space. Dearth started to shake with panic. His console was still compiling the data, but he checked if the data on the humans was ever removed from the algorithm. Dearth started sweating in his seat. Anything but the humans. Anything. The threat was no longer at 12.45%. The first lesson a threat assessor was taught was never to flip that switch. Ever. If an assessor did flip it, his life would surely be forfeit. It was the main rule of the assessors. Do not flip the switch. Calmly, Dearth opened the clear plastic cover. An alarm blared through the room, and the other assessors looked up in shock. Dearth calmly looked at him, and slowly reaching out, put his hand on the switch. Alarms blared loudly. Screams from the assessors filled the room. The entire complex went up like a kicked anthill. People running, communicators buzzing, the direct line to the council itself, flashing red. The Alliance was brought to panic with the literal flip of a switch. The Alliance did not know who it was at war with, but Dearth did. As the assessors screamed at him, demanding to know why he did what he did, telling him he was going to be executed for doing this, asking him if he lost his sanity. Dirth just looked at them. "The humans are back," he said with a sense of finality. Admiral Randall Lander of the UES Terracotta checked the status logs one more time. Everything seemed to be in order. This was it. There was no turning back, no going home ever again when the warp fold engaged. Every man and woman on every ship in the battle group were volunteers. Everyone knowing there is no coming back. Everyone hell-bent on sending a message. The explorers. That is what humanity called them. Adventurers and homesteaders, families and friends, over 2 million of them spread across thousands of ships, eager to explore the edges of the galaxy with the new warp-fold technology that humanity had discovered. Admiral Lander still remembers the ancient videos of the event. All humanity joined in celebration as we stood on the brink of greatness, spreading far and wide to ensure our race's survival. And he remembered how the excitement turned to dismay, to horror. The old videos showed the fleet of ships, all fire up their warp fields at the same time, to travel the far-flung Canis Major dwarf galaxy, where habitable planets had been discovered. But something went wrong. The ships began to glow, starting softly and then increasing in brightness and intensity. The comms were filled with the screams of the fleet command crews as they tried to shut down the engines, but the warp fields seemed to feed off of each other, causing a cascade effect that was unstoppable. And the whole world watched as the entire fleet, over 2 million souls, simply folded in on itself, disintegrating into oblivion. There were no survivors. The entire world bore witness to what was called the Great Catastrophe. Humanity decided to abandon any warp-fold technology except for communications. They still explored, still searched the stars, but the fire that drove them before seemed to have dimmed. And it would be hundreds of years until they got that fire back. It would start with a part-time college student named John Williams. He was a great lover of space and dedicated part of his life to the hobby of monitoring communications and signals from the Great Void. Often, he would pick up on spacefaring cargo ships or military exercises, but his great hope was to find a signal not of human origin. He wanted to be the first to prove that humans were not alone. And it was 342 years after the Great Catastrophe when he would prove it, though not in the way he imagined. He was in his barn, adjusting the satellite dish to an empty part of space to recalibrate it, when he picked up on the faintest of signals. Curious, he carefully focused in on the signal until he got rid of most of the background noise. He started recording. The signal certainly was not normal space noise. It was a slow, steady beeping, just barely audible. "Again, we are sending this in the hopes." The voice turned to static, but came back in a bit, "We did not perish. We are all alive." Here, the static got much worse, and he was only able to get bits and pieces. John's next move was to call the Space Exploration Commission. He gave them a copy of the recording, and they in turn contacted the Planetary Council, who then contacted the military. After months of research, it was proven. The explorers did not die. They were thrown so far out that even at the warp fold speed for communications, it took 340 years to reach back to Earth. They were not 25,000 light-years away as planned. They were 12 million light-years away. Once again, Earth celebrated and yearned in vain to be able to contact their brothers and sisters across the universe. But even if they replied, it would not get there for centuries. So humanity did the only thing it could think of. Warp-fold technology was once again brought to the forefront, and all available resources were poured into trying to understand what went wrong, how to fix it, and most importantly, how to replicate the accident. The best communication technology was now focused on the far-flung reaches of space where the stray humans ended up, and though Earth did not get 100% of every message, they got most. We have set up and started cities on our new homeworld. We call it Terracotta because, well, Terra is home, and everything on this planet is a rusty brown color, a laughing female voice claimed. Air processors were barely needed here. It is close to Earth like... It is close to home. A week later brought a new communication. It has been 40 years today since the accident. We are thriving and even set up a nearby colony. The young ones have only seen home through pictures and video. They all comment on how blue and green everything is. To them, terracotta is home. We will be okay. An older male voice came through one time. It was a puzzle to the scientists how some messages took less time than others. Only 2 years had passed on Earth, but they claimed 40 did on terracotta. It was deduced it had to be something to do with the warp fold fields. Another mystery to work out. In the end, they realized that all the signals came through in a single batch, and what took the explorers hundreds of years to send, Earth received them all in just a dozen years. The updates came less and less, but they never stopped. We are now on our homeworld and have 4 other colonies. Our population is thriving. We only wish we could communicate with you, our true homeworld. But until that day, know we are happy and well. On Earth, it was 10 years after the first communication from the explorers that the secrets of the warp folds were discovered. The engines DID feed off each other, and there was no stopping it. The engines also were turned to molten slag after use. Sadly, it did not work. Even when the engines were unpowered, they became part of the cascade and added to the warp fold. It seemed that every trip was a one-way jump, and unless a new warp fold engine could be built after they folded, they would be stuck. And warp fold engines were extremely hard to make, requiring precise and methodical procedures. Even in the most pristine facilities with the best scientists, failure rates were close to 80%. So humanity would send an envoy to Terracotta, letting them know they were not stuck out there, alone and forgotten. Humans stick together, and Earth was not going to ignore her children. It was at this time, as ships were being outfitted for the surprise visit, that a message changed the entire universe as Earth knew it. We are not alone, one voice, long since dead, proclaimed. A group of aliens calling themselves the Alliance has contacted us. They claim we are on the far edges of their territory and want to open trade with us. We are all very excited. Earth was stunned. Humans were not alone in the universe. Again, celebrations broke out across the planet and its colonies. But once again, the cheers would end up turning to dread. We have been welcomed with open arms by the Alliance, the next communication proclaimed. Trade is going well, and this past decade has been both prosperous and profitable for Terracotta. But soon the tone changed. The Alliance has revoked our trade status. When asked why, they claim something they call a threat assessor has deemed that we are a core threat, the entire Alliance. We are not sure what that means, but have requested to open talks to get to the bottom of it. The Alliance has attacked our farthest colony. No survivors. We have begged them to open negotiations, but the only reply we received was, the Alliance does not negotiate with any threat. We asked them if they declared war. Their reply was, war. We are not on a mission of war. We are on a mission of extermination. I fear they mean it. On Earth, stunned silence greeted every message, each seemingly worse than the last. The entire planet lived on every word, every message sent to us from afar. The populace prayed that their long-lost kindred would be okay. The next communication was worse still. We won our first victory, destroying almost the entire Alliance fleet. We let the wounded and defenseless ships go. They did not show us the same mercy. They killed us even if we were helpless. The Alliance is not populated by people. They are made of monsters. Shortly after, Earth received a new message. The Alliance planet of Terrium-2 is destroyed. We did not fire on their fleeing vessels as they did us, but we did alter our atmosphere processors to poison the planet's air. Their planet was doomed the second our machines fired up, creating a reaction that ensured that no matter what they did, they could not change what we started. We now will do the same to the next Alliance planet. On Earth, shock and horror was on every face. Humans had poisoned the air of an entire planet, killed countless people. True, they were being killed themselves, but still, it was jarring. If Earth ever faces the Alliance, do not hesitate. Do not wait. Do not show mercy, as the Alliance will never give that to you. Kill them. Kill them all, and kill them fast. They do not know of your existence. We wiped every mention of our true homeworld from the records. They think we were all that was left. We fought them with farming ships and escort vessels and still bloodied their noses. If you ever come here, show them what we truly can do in a fight. And that was the last message ever received from the explorers. Their colonization of their new home was less than 350 years, almost the same amount of time it took for Earth to realize they were alive and start outfitting a welcoming party. They could not let Terracotta go unavenged. Volunteers were called for, ships built and outfitted, and for the first time in centuries, Earth was going to war. A battle fleet had been assembled. Over 800 support ships and ships of war. And with a bright glow, the battle group Vengeance blinked out of existence in our galaxy, and blinked in right where it was hoping, above the desolate and destroyed human world of Terracotta. "Report!" he barked, fighting the nausea he felt from the jump. "As expected, all warp engines offline, but all ships accounted for and functional, Admiral." "View screen," he ordered, and he did not need to say what he wanted to see. The screen showed the devastated landscape and ruined cities of Terracotta, destroyed almost 350 years ago. "Sir, we're detecting a beacon in orbit. It is relaying a message in an unknown language and in English, sir." The beacon's message loudly echoed through each ship. "This planet is off-limits to all. It is here as a reminder and a warning that if you threaten the Alliance, you will meet a dire fate." "On the main screen," the Admiral replied. And the video that played was the last human video that the Alliance had on the humans. When John's ship exploded at the end, every person on every ship was filled with both hatred and pride. Admiral Lander's eyes narrowed. "Save that video and destroy that damn thing. Let's get to work." Silent gunfire ripped the beacon apart. "Broadcast all ships," the Admiral said, and waited until the communication officer nodded at him. "This is Admiral Randall Lander," he said calmly. "Below us are the corpses of our brothers, sisters, sons, and daughters, all killed in the coldest of blood. We have come here for one purpose and one purpose only, to show the Alliance vengeance as only we can. From this point on, radio silence unless using secure channels. You are to fire on any and all non-human ships without warning. We are going to rip this so-called Alliance down and send them back to the Stone Age, literally." Cheers erupted all around him. "If the Alliance wants humanity to be a threat, we will show them exactly how much of a threat we can be." And at that moment, on the other side of Alliance-controlled space, an algorithm detected the destruction of the Terracotta beacon, and not having the data to process it, it sent an alert to a young threat assessor named Dearth.
If you finished this story, please subscribe and like the video. Then leave a comment that says, "I liked the story," and I will heart every single one of them. It really helps me. Thank you for your time.